everything that we know about what it means to be a therapist and what it means for the consumer to buy therapeutic services, all of that is changing.
This episode is sponsored by Therapy Notes, therapynotes.com. Be sure and check them out, and be sure and use the promo code Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. Over 15 years ago, when I started my private practice, I had to learn a lot, and most of it the hard way, and I don't think you need to do the same. Hi, I'm Gordon Brewer, a licensed psychotherapist, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. Join me in this journey of discovery as we have conversations with other leaders and professionals in both the mental and allied health fields. Join us as we explore both the business and clinical sides of running a private practice. This is Gordon Brewer, and this is episode number 321 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. So glad you've joined me, and hope you're having a good March. Here we are already into the month of March. So I'm looking forward to you hearing from my guest today, Dr. Liz Lasky. And Liz was a person that reached out to me to ask me to be on a summit that she's got coming up. It's an online summit, and it's called the 2024 Therapist, 21 Ways to Get What You Want in Business and Entrepreneurship. And so she interviewed me for one of the segments of that summit that's going to be an online summit. And I'll have links to that here soon. And hopefully they'll be here in the show notes. But anyway, if you're on my email list, you'll be sure to get the link so you can register for that summit. It's a free summit. And Liz and I talk a little bit about that in this particular interview. But a big part of what we talk about is just the ways in which we can diversify our income and influence as therapists, and just thinking of outside the box a little bit, of being able to think of ways of providing help to people in maybe ways that aren't in the manner of traditional therapy. So I guess that's a good way to put that. But anyway, looking forward to you hearing my conversation with Liz here in just a minute. But before we get to that, one of the things that I'd really love for you to do is find out more about the Practice of Therapy Practice Collaborative that I've started and have launched this month. If you're on my email list, you would have gotten some information about this already. But if you'll go over to practiceoftherapy.com/Practice Collaborative, you can find out about this new exclusive membership community that I've put together. And after getting feedback from other people that have participated with me in previous mastermind groups and membership communities that I've hosted, this one is going to be different in that it's going to have more intensity and plans to meet every week. And so I'd love for you to go check it out. The format's basically going to be 1 week, the first week of the month, we'll get together for a mastermind and office hours where we can ask questions and troubleshoot together as a group. The second week will be a work day. And so we'll get together and work on things that we said we're going to work on as a way to kind of hold each other accountable. Also, the third week is going to be probably a guest consultant or somebody in the field to be there to present you with some information or just have a Q&A. And then also there'll be a teaching component of it with it on the fourth week, in which I'll teach some skills and some things specific to being in private practice, or just around different topics. So you'll have an opportunity to do something every single week as long as you're a member. And also we'll have access in between the times that we meet on the Circle platform that I absolutely love now. And that way it's a way for us to communicate between meetings and chat and just have a way to talk to each other. But anyway, I'd love for you to find out more about it by going over to practiceoftherapy.com/practice collaborative. And you can find out how to enroll and join us in this exclusive membership community. It's going to be well worth your while. And if you join before March 15th of 2024, you can get $20 off your membership fee just by using the promo code COLLAB24. So be sure and check out that landing page and find out more about it. And I'd love to have you join me. I'm really excited about this getting started. So, and also real quickly, before we get to my conversation with Liz, I'd love for you to hear from one of the members of the Sightcraft Network, along with some words from our sponsor of the podcast, Therapy Notes.
Hi, Dawn Gabriel here. If you don't know me yet, I'm the person behind Soul Care for Therapists podcast, which is part of the Sightcraft network of podcasts. The Sightcraft network is a collaboration of independent podcasters focused on helping people live more meaningful and productive lives. This network of podcasts provides both self-help and business building resources to create an impact in the world and change people's lives. I'm so proud to be a part of this network. And if you haven't discovered Soul Care for Therapists podcast, you can find us wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'd love for you to join me as we explore the layered inner world that comes with being a therapist, an entrepreneur, and just plain human. I invite you to intentionally tune in holistically to your body, mind, and spirit in order to build a sustainable business and fulfilling lifestyle. We dive in to what it looks like to grow your business. We also look at how soul care, authentic community, and spiritual practices can help you prevent burnout and live a life you love. Join me as we allow the sacred to intersect with our work.
Have you ever wished your private practice could run as smoothly as a well-oiled machine? Well, look no further, because Therapy Notes is here to revolutionize your practice. Therapy Notes is the complete practice management system you've been dreaming of. With everything you need to manage patient records, schedule appointments, meet with clients remotely, create rich documentation, and handle insurance billing, it's your secret weapon for a smoother practice. And the best part? It's accessible wherever and whenever you need it. Yep, even on the go. Imagine having more time for what truly matters, your clients. It's like having an extra set of hands, but digital. And here's the kicker. It's the very EHR Gordon relies on in his own practice. So, you know it's the real deal. Say goodbye to paperwork nightmares and hello to more time and better quality care. Check out Therapy Notes today at practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes. Oh, and don't forget to use the promo code GORDON to get 2 months free. That's practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes with the promo code GORDON. Enjoy the show.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to the podcast. And I'm really excited for you to get to know Dr. Liz Lasky. Welcome, Liz.
Hey, everybody.
Liz and I have recently gotten acquainted, and Liz had reached out to me, and she's got an upcoming summit she's going to tell us a little bit about in this episode. But Liz, as I start with everyone, why don't you tell folks more about yourself and how you've landed where you've landed?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on your podcast. And it's so funny because you and I, Gordon, have probably run in the same circles for so long, but we lived in these separate corners on the internet, and now we found each other and we have so much overlap. So It's so
Yeah.
nice to be connected with you. Thank you so
Well,
much for having me. I am a very proud social worker. I'm a clinical social worker here in New York. I hold an agency job where I worked in New York City schools for over 15 years now. I supervise a school-based program, actually, and that's by day, but by night, I have a whole other piece of me
mm,
that now is interwoven and connected, and I'll share a little bit about that. But in addition to being a clinical social worker, I'm also a PhD in social welfare. I'm also a certified coach. And I'm an accredited coach with the International Coaching Federation. I'm a very proud fellow of the Institute of Coaching at Harvard University. And
mm.
I call myself a social worker because I'm a social worker through and through. And I'm also a certified coach. And both of those things blend to make Dr. Liz Lasky.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, it's Lynn had interviewed me for the upcoming summit. You want to say something about that really quickly?
Yeah, of course. So, one of the things that I love to do, to nobody's surprise, if you know me, is I love to talk to people. And one of the things that I've been doing lately, I've been putting on these incredible virtual summits where I've been interviewing people in our industry where they are really making waves. And the summit that I'm working on now, and we start airing on March 25th. So, by the way, hopefully in these show notes, you'll have a way to sign up for this for
Yes.
the summit because Gordon is an incredible guest on this summit. The upcoming summit is called the 2024 Therapist, 21 Ways to Get What You Want in Business and Entrepreneurship. And I'm interviewing 21 people in our industry who are making waves in the business realm because one of the things that I'm noticing the most is that therapists want to diversify their income. They want to spend less time in that one-to-one and they really want to be making more money. So I am offering people 21 ways to do that. They're interesting, rich, funny conversations with people that we wish we could get on the phone with for a half an hour.
Hmm.
And I'm asking all the questions that all of you want to ask too. So this summit really is incredible and it's free. It's free to everybody. So come on over and join us for the summit.
Yeah, and and definitely we'll have links here in the show notes and the show summary for this. But one of the things that I know we had talked about is just this balance between, doing the clinical side of things, being an entrepreneur, and just all that goes with that, and maybe some of the self-shaming we tend to do around, making money and all of that sort of thing. So, Liz, talk about that because I know it's just something that you're really
Yeah.
passionate about.
So I want to take you back to when I was living in New York. I was in my 20s. I was working full time in the Bronx in a middle school. I was also doing my PhD at night. And, I don't know about you and your training, Gordon. You'll tell me, did you have to go to treatment or to therapy when you were in school? Was that something they asked you to
It,
do?
they didn't, it wasn't a requirement, but we did a lot of practice on ourselves. But I will say, it's so funny. I had a conversation yesterday with Casey Compton, and we recorded for an episode, and we were talking about that very thing about it should be a requirement, I think, that every therapist be in therapy.
hmm Well, it was
Hmm.
something, and by the way, different programs have different rules around that.
Hmm.
I tend to agree with that to a certain degree. And it was really important for me to kind of follow that advice and go into treatment when I was in my doctoral program. And so by the way, if I do anything well, it's go to school. Like if a teacher tells me to do something, stand up straight, write on the left side of the paper, you got it. Like whatever you need
Yeah.
me to do in school, I'm there. So they told me to go to treatment. And just because, I'm so good, I'm good at being in school. I'm not always
Hmm.
great at the work, but I'm good at being a student. They
Uh-huh.
said go to therapy. I said, great. So I found a therapist on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I would go visit her every Friday at 4 p.m. And by visit, I mean we would have a session. And I honestly, it was such a terrible experience.
Mm.
And I left there. I can't even remember her name. I refer to her as what's her name therapist. I can't even, yeah, I remember certain things about her, but the most thing I remember is that I would leave there every Friday at 4:50 feeling worse than when I came in. And
Mm.
I just want to say for people listening to this, and I'm sure there are people who could be running clinical circles around me for days. I know I'm a clinical social worker too. I know that the goal of leaving the therapy room is not to walk out dancing on air and being happy. I know that. But my problem was I left there feeling like I was looking for a problem I didn't have.
Mm.
And by the way, I knew there were things I needed to talk about. I was in school for full time while I was working full time. I was in my 20s living in a country where my family did not live. I'm not from the United States. My family was in a different country. I was in my 20s. I was single. I wasn't going out because I was working so much. Did I mention I was single? Like there were things I really
Mm-hmm.
could have talked about. And I just knew that this, what's her name, 4 o'clock on Friday, it just wasn't working for me. And that was really, and by the way, I had this, I don't know if it was an instinct. I don't know if it was in the back of my brain. I don't know if it was just something I knew about myself, but I just always knew there's more than this. There's
Mm.
more than this. There's bigger than this. And I also had the luxury of living in New York City, which is a candy land for ideas and new and different communities. And I started bopping around to different communities to find that inspiration. I found it a little bit spiritually, and I also ended up finding it in the coaching community. And
Wow.
it was around that time where I took my first coaching group where I was being coached by somebody, and I just drank the Kool-Aid. I drank it all, and I drank it fast. I loved it. I could not get enough. I was going to every class. I was reading every book. I was reading every blog post. I mean, it was in the early 2000s, so we were we
Mm-hmm.
were reading blogs. And
Mm-hmm.
I started a coaching group, and it was so long ago that my coaching group, for those of you under 35, you'll have to really think hard about this one.
Mm-hmm.
We met on the phone. We met
Wow,
on the
wow.
phone. It was like pre-Zoom. I know I'm aging
Mm-hmm.
myself, right?
Yeah.
So, I started to fall in love with coaching, and I just started to see what is possible because instead of always going in, what's the problem? How are you feeling? That pace did not match where I was in my life. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
potential. I wanted solution. I wanted to think about things like, what do I want to create for myself? What do I want to be? How do I want to show up in the world? I wasn't being asked any of those things in treatment because the treatment was serving a very different purpose. And a big part of that, Gordon, was also how much money do I want to make? Because
Mm-hmm.
when I was working the South Bronx in a middle school and doing my counseling sessions at a middle school desk with a middle school chair, good thing I'm only 5 feet tall.
Uh-huh.
I was making what, $40,000 a year?
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept thinking to myself, there has to be more than this. I know there's more than this. Why isn't
Mm-hmm.
only me as a social worker here to accept wearing my plain Jane outfit every day, my plain pair of jeans, my plain t-shirt, my plain cardigan? Where was my black pant with a hot pink accent where it was fun and
Mm-hmm.
juicy and bedazzled and it was funny and I was making jokes and I felt more, where was that? Because I
Yeah.
saw all the people around me who were working in banks, who were working in law firms, had their own business, who were even honestly, and this is meant, Manhattan, where the secret sauce in Manhattan is a side gig. Even people who were nannying and walking dogs were happier and more fulfilled than me. And dare I say, making more money. How was it
Yeah.
that a waiter who never went to college was pulling in six figures? And I had a master's degree and a half of a PhD, and I'm making $40,000. The math was not mathing. It just
Mm-hmm.
didn't make sense to me. And by the way, let me tell you why this was really rough in my brain for the old
Uh-huh.
noggin, because
Uh-huh.
it pushed me into an identity crisis. Because I started coaching, as I told you, I was being coached and I was reading everything and I was finding, oh my God, this is actually science. This is actually evidence-based practice. And I started wanting to implement the coaching. But the people in the social work world, my mentors, my supervisors, my teachers, my colleagues, they thought I was off my rocker. They
Mm.
thought coaching was bogus. They thought my mindset was delusional. Truly, they thought I wasn't in reality. And then the people on the coaching side, because I eventually, like all people who finish a PhD, immediately go back to school. I went back to school
Uh-huh.
to NYU to do my certificate in coaching. But everyone in coaching school thought I was equally insane because I was taking things like ethics and confidentiality and the rules so seriously in coaching. So I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't find a place. I couldn't find a
Yeah.
place to land. So when you ask me about what it's like to build business and to make more money, it was one of those things where I felt we have two very loud voices clashing at each other. One is stay where you are, do the work, be a good social worker, wear your plain jeans, don't make noise, fly under the radar, don't have a personality. It's all the things that we're taught in traditional social work. And I know I might get pushback for that, and that's okay. You
Mm-hmm.
can email me about that and we can talk about that more.
Mm-hmm.
But then we also had the coaching, which was be yourself, ask for more, create what you want, build the road to where you want to go. It was a totally different mindset. And I just decided for myself. I don't know if I decided for myself or, like I said, it was something that was already in me. I just knew in that moment I was building the road to where I wanted to go. I
Yeah.
just didn't want to accept that anymore. And I want to say I'm coming with a lot of privilege too. I'm an educated woman. I have resources. I am white. There are a lot of things that also put me in that position to have privilege to choose that I can build this road. But as I got to know what it was like to build this road, it made it even more, I guess the word is possible for not only me but for others in my life as well.
Mm.
And that is really, though, that is really the bigger picture of why building business is so important to me, having access to good skills as a therapist. And also
Mm-hmm.
I also want people to know that you can be a therapist and make serious money.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's funny because as you were talking about this, I remember early on when I went into private practice, and I was, it was back in the blogging days, and I was posting blogs and talking about private practice and getting into private practice, and there was somebody on LinkedIn that was, I, I believe they were in academia, as far as teaching counselors, therapists, social workers, or whatever. And they actually made the comment that don't waste your time on private practice because you can't make any money in it. And it was kind of like, you've got to be kidding me. It's quite the opposite, you know? And I think one of the things that, and hopefully is changing, there's trying to think of the word I'm looking for, but there's almost, a bit of snobbery in academia around what we do clinically and how we work with people. And
A little
that's
bit, a
all.
lot of bit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's just, and I think we're starting to see some pushback with that. I mean, not to get too
Yeah.
far off on a tangent, a lot of the professional organizations are struggling. Like,
Yes.
I'm a marriage and family therapist, AAMFT and the organizations like that, which are good. And I'm not putting them down, but I think they're struggling because I think people are recognizing they can get what they really need in terms of development for themselves and that sort of thing in other ways. And so I think that's something that we're seeing that's kind of a trend. But
Well, I think
yeah.
that I agree with you. I think that there are a lot
Hmm.
of problems in the academy. There are a lot of
Hmm.
problems in the universities. There are a lot of problems in some of these training programs for
Hmm.
therapists. I also this is something that I've been really thinking about lately. It's really come up in the virtual summit, the 2024 therapist. I want to say two things. Number one, yes, it's true you can make money in private practice. I also want to offer the idea it doesn't just have to be private practice. There
Yes.
are so many ways that therapists can diversify their businesses. So that's number one. That's what I want to say because I have people who come to me and I coach therapists all the time who have these incredible skills that no one else has because they're fluent in people. They know human
Hmm.
behavior. So they're whipping up courses. They're doing digital products. They're teaching CEUs. They're running groups. They're doing psycho ed groups. They're running supervision groups. Some of them are doing, products. I have someone right now who I'm coaching who she's created a sticker business that has affirmations on them. So
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say it's beyond the private practice these days. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason that I called this summit the 2024 therapist is because everything that we know about what it means to be a therapist and what it means for the consumer to buy therapeutic services, all of that is changing. We
Mm-hmm.
are in a different realm of what it means to be a mental health provider and what it means to be a mental health consumer. So the
Yeah.
business of therapy, I think, is really we are in the midst of change now. And I think
Yes.
if a therapist really wants to make it, then it's two different things. If a therapist really wants to make it, first and foremost, I always say to people, you have to know yourself. You have to know really how you want to give back. And you have to really know how you want to be showing up for yourself and for the people that you serve. That comes first, for sure. I also want to introduce the idea because there might be people listening to this like, oh, Liz, I don't want to have this empire of like a digital course and a book and the whole thing. And that's okay. Because I think we have to look at the ideas of business development and entrepreneurship almost in separate lanes. Because
Mm-hmm.
everyone who's listening to you, everyone who's talking to you about their private practice, they're all business owners. They're all small business owners, but they might not have the entrepreneurship spirit. And this is
Mm-hmm.
what I mean by that. And then I'm curious to hear what you think about that. But to run a business and to run a small business, you can run a small business forever, 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 and you can be making money and you can be making good money. The entrepreneur is that person who's going to make that sticker pack, who's going to think
Mm-hmm.
of what is happening now, how can I contribute, what's beyond what we know to be typical, what's beyond the status quo. It's a different
Mm-hmm.
level of visionary, it's a different level of creativity. Often the people that I coach come to me because they're just in between the business owner and the entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that as we are seeing more and more therapists and mental health practitioners sort of expand their offerings, we're seeing more of the entrepreneurial spirit.
Right, right. Well, I think one of the things where I see people struggle when they go into private practice is they don't understand the difference between being employed versus self-employed. And I think a lot of times people go into this creating another job for themselves as opposed to looking at the kind of the entrepreneurial opportunities that they can create for themselves. And I think, if you create a job for yourself just as a therapist, and you do a private practice and you do traditional therapy and not much beyond that, you're going to reach a ceiling eventually. There's only so many people you can see. There's only so many hours you can put into doing therapy. And, I think for some people, that's all they want, and that's
Yeah.
fine. I think
Yeah,
it's,
totally.
yeah. And I think you've got to recognize that on the front end. If that's all you want, I would say, why go to the trouble of creating the business? Why not just go to work for somebody as in private practice that hires clinicians so that you're finding the right one where you can make the kind of living you want to make, create the kind of lifestyle you want to create for yourself, and that's fine. But I think you're absolutely right. I think that what distinguishes you know creating a job from being an entrepreneur is entrepreneurs have this creative side they have to feed. And so I know that's part of it for me is that, you know, I can, create a job for myself and, I can fill up my caseload pretty quickly. I've cut way back in the number of clients I see and to keep a very small caseload, but I'm devoting my time to the creative stuff that really feeds the soul and really gives meaning and all of that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's what you're getting at there, Liz, but I think there's so much more that people can tap into
Yeah.
and at the same time make the money that they need to make for themselves and feel good about it.
Yeah. It's making me think of a couple things that I want to say. I think the one idea I want to offer to people who are listening to this, it's a mantra that I have, by the way, and I pull this out when I need it because sometimes it's like, oh, I'm a business owner. Do I need to be an entrepreneur? I want to do that, but am I going to have to give that up? Or how am I, the spiraling we do in our heads?
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say I have that too. I have those thoughts too. I want to offer the thought or the mantra of it's safe to have it all. It's safe
Mm-hmm.
to have it all. And I want to also share how I do that because I'm not gatekeepy about anything. So I want to also be very transparent about how I quote unquote do it all because first of all, I really believe it's safe to have it all. I still hold an agency job, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
I and that's really important to me. It's really important to me to stay a social worker and to be very committed to my social justice work and to show up as a social worker. And I also have a business. And both of those are really important to me. And I believe it's safe to have it all.
Mm-hmm.
And does that mean it's always super easy for me? Absolutely not. Like I have to do a lot of things. Like right now, as you and I meet, this is my lunch hour. If I
Mm-hmm.
teach, like I have a year-long business coaching group called Business Mastery. We meet every Wednesday at 12 to 1 because that is my lunch hour. And I show up fully as the coach. And then I go back to being fully the agency social worker. Will I
Mm-hmm.
always stay in the agency world? I don't know, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't have to be in that agency world right now financially. It's not something that I would say that I really have to do, but it's important to me because I
Mm-hmm.
believe it's safe to have it all. So I just want to say that. So it doesn't have to
Mm-hmm.
be all or nothing because the point is this. No one is telling you that you have to get to this, and you and I probably both know this, that you have to get to your six-figure mark. Because guess what? You get to your six-figure mark and you're like, this is it.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like not you don't all have to go and get your next six figures. I don't want that for you if you don't want that. But think about this. Would another $1,000 a month make a difference for your family? Probably. Do you want to wake up on Christmas morning and surprise your kids that you're going to Disney because you made that extra $6,000 by selling some psycho ed groups? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have to be that you want to build an empire. It could also be, I like to call it a cash injection, or you want to generate some money, go for your lowest hanging fruit. Like there are a lot of different ways that I teach people how to do that because I know that having an extra $300 a week is going to make people not panic when they walk into Costco.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think we have to shift the mindset because I think we hear so much in our industry. I mean, you go on Instagram and you hear all the time, I'm going to get you to six figures. This is your next six-figure step. Although now people got bored with six figures. So now people are building to seven figures, and those are like, oh my God, can we just take a break for a second? Yes,
Mm-hmm.
sure. If you want to get to six figures, whatever, do that. We love that for you. And also, if you just want to make another $500 a week, because your kid needs occupational therapy and you want to go to the best person and it's out of pocket,
Mm-hmm.
let's get you that. Let's
Yes.
make this real for people. Let's make this real for therapists. Let's not
Yes.
make this the biggest entrepreneurial endeavor of your life. Let's cash raise, let's fundraise so your kid can get a new bike.
Yeah.
That's what it means to me. Like this is
Yes.
why I think this conversation is so important.
Yeah.
I think we have so many resources as therapists and we just know what to do so often. We just have to do it for ourselves and get a little
Right.
allow the creativity to roll through us.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I totally agree. Well, Liz, I know we've got to watch our time here, but would you tell folks a little bit, because you kind of hit on it, is what are just some trends that you're noticing in how our whole industry is changing? Because I know that's something that you've really been paying a lot of attention to.
Yeah. I think the biggest trend that I am seeing the most is this desire to diversify.
Mm-hmm.
It is the desire to diversify our income streams. It is our desire to provide services in a new and in a different way. It is truly the biggest trend I think that we're seeing in our industry. And it is probably one of the biggest shifts that we've seen in a really, really long time. Because your therapist is not just the underground therapist that you can only pay with a paper check anymore. That is not what therapy looks like. And I think this is really connected to why some of the schools are having such a difficult time, because what therapy is really changing, and the demands are changing, the needs are changing. And also, the other trend that I'm seeing is that, and this is going to be controversial. So, if you already sent me an email about what I've said that's controversial, get ready, because you're going to send another one. Okay. The other thing that I think is a trend that I'm seeing now is that people do not want to unpack the trauma. People don't always want to go and sit in therapy for 3, 4, 5 years, unpacking, resolving. People want to get up and go. People need to get up and go. People need to get up and feed their kids and go to the store and wash your hair and go to work yourself and make sure someone took out the dog. We need to do that. People do not want to always unpack. And so it leaves therapists in a funny spot, because what do we do with that? We still know that we have to help people because they still do need the support. So how do we help that person go from A to B without really saying, in order for you to be successful here, you have to really commit and unpack every single detail. Sometimes we don't have to unpack every small little piece of trauma. Sometimes we need to keep going.
Yes. I think I think there's a lot of truth in that, because I think people have their own journey with all of that stuff. And I think, I think a lot of unpacking, I think, of stuff for people also occurs outside the therapy room, where they just have these aha moments just in regular life, and it's not like they'd have to have somebody to make them go through every little detail of things. So,
by the way, I'm gonna leave you and our listeners with a coaching skill right now, because what in my business I coach. I also teach people how to coach. And one of the reasons I teach people how to coach, I teach master's level clinicians how to coach well, how to coach ethically. One of the biggest reasons that I do that is because there is that demand for quicker work. There really is a demand for that work where you're able to help someone get from A to B without having to unpack every single piece, because people don't have time and they might not have the desire. Now, I also want to say, it doesn't mean that coaching is replacing therapy. There's a time and place for both. But one of my favorite coaching skills is how we end a session. And we always ask the coaching client, what is something that you want to think about this week? What's something you want to think about? Maybe there's a mindset you want to think about. Maybe there's an idea you want to think about. That's number one. Number two is what is something that you want to reflect on? Where can reflection take place around? What would you like to reflect? And the third piece, of course, because it's coaching, is always, what do you want to take action around? So when you say that it's those in between moments, it's one of my favorite coaching skills, because we know, and we know this too as consumers, that we leave that room, whether it's a therapy room or whether it's a coaching room, and there is magic that happens in between. So anyway, if you're listening to this, or even you, Gordon, if you want to borrow that, it's yours. By the way, I didn't make it up. It's evidence-based practice from the ICF. But we're always asking, what do you want to think about this week? What do you want to reflect on? How do you want to take action this week? Because we know that people are only with us for a short amount of time, and then they're going to live their lives. So we're setting them up for that.
Right. Yeah. Well, Liz, this has just been so much fun to talk with you. Tell folks how they can get in touch with you to find out more and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. I live over at lizlasky.com, LIZLASKY.com. If you're interested in learning how to coach, I have a very fun freebie over at my website that you can sign on at lizlasky.com. It is 101 coaching questions. So if you're interested in it, go download those questions, start weaving them into your work now, see if you like it. I have programs to learn how to coach, and I also have programs to get coached. Also, and I think most importantly, and come see your buddy Gordon, because dropping March 25th, we are dropping the 2024 Therapist 21 Ways to Get What You Want in Business and Entrepreneurship. Do not sleep on this summit. Honestly, we even have some goodies. We're giving away almost 21 freebies, 21 goodies that are in here. There's also an option to join us for a masterclass. There's lots of options for freebies from the gifts from the guests, I should say. So this is an incredible summit. There is no way that you're going to leave this summit without learning something and without some inspiration. So I hope people will be able to join us for that. It's free, and it's incredible interviews.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to hearing it. Well, Liz, thanks. And we'll have all these things in the show notes for people to get to quickly. And I'm sure we'll be talking again. So thanks again for being on this episode. Well, big thanks to Liz for joining me on this episode. And I hope that you found some of this inspirational and just maybe thinking outside the box about what you do as a therapist and how maybe even considering moving into coaching. I know that one of the things we're looking at in my practice is starting to offer some life coaching services, particularly around just helping couples as much as anything, just troubleshoot the ways that they communicate and that sort of thing. That's not necessarily therapy where you're digging into past issues and trauma and that sort of thing, but just working on things like that. So I think there's lots of opportunities. Also, there's just tons of different ways that you can diversify your income. But be sure and check out Liz's things. You can find her at lizlasky.com. And also, if you'll check the show notes here, we should have some links for the upcoming summit that is going to be starting, I believe it's March 25th is what she said. And you'll find yours truly in that summit as one of the presenters that we've pre-recorded. And it's an online summit and it's a free summit. So be sure and check it out. And also, I'd love for you to go find out more about the Practice of Therapy Practice Collaborative. It's something that I've been working on over this last few months as far as really revamping the way that I do membership groups and masterminds and having community around what we do in private practice. And I'm really pleased with the new format and hope you'll join me. And if you'll go over to practiceoftherapy.com/practice collaborative, and if you sign up and enroll before March the 15th of this month, you can get $20 off your membership fee for the lifetime of your membership. So go over and check it out. Take advantage of that discount. And also, big thanks to our sponsor of the podcast, Therapy Notes. They are the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. They're who I use in my practice, and they're constantly improving things and making things better. They've got a whole list of assessments now that you can provide to people through their portal. Also, telehealth is available all in one place. And so they just make running your private practice about as seamless as possible, particularly on the clinical side of things. So be sure and check them out, practiceoftherapy.com/therapy notes. And be sure and use the promo code just Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. So thanks again, folks, for joining me. And do take time to follow us wherever you might be listening to your podcast or subscribe. And leave us a rating and some review. That'll just help other people find us and be able to share with you and what you're learning, hopefully, by listening to this podcast. So take care, folks. Got lots of great guests lined up in our future episodes. You've been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. You can find out more about the other great podcasts in the network by visiting psychcraftnetwork.com. And if you haven't done so already, please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com and get your free private practice startup guide, along with a lot of other great resources and webinars and free things just by visiting. Also, be sure to follow us wherever you might be listening to your podcasts. This podcast is intended to be educational in purpose and is not intended to give legal, accounting, or counseling advice. If you need a professional, find the right person for that.